Hey, what's up, Brew Crew? Opie here. Welcome back to the Brew City Garden for part 2 of the early August Straw Bale Garden Tour. Hey, I'm glad you guys made it back. I'm glad to see you here. And without further ado, hey, let's get right into it.
Kohlrabi, anybody? Look at those bad boys. These are the giant Kohlrabi. And they're not giant yet. They're bigger than the average Kohlrabi. But these things will get to the size of about a basketball if I let them go. So, you know, my wife always says, what the hell are you going to do with those giant Kohlrabi? Well, I don't know, but they're really cool to grow. So we're going to grow them. Actually, these can be shredded up and made into a very nice, either a slaw or a sauerkraut. They do very well for a sauerkraut, and it's a crunchier texture. So, but just like to show these things off. We'll see more of this, especially once it gets really big. Now, looking pretty good over here. We do have quite a bit of Japanese beetle damage. You can see where these leaves have been skeletonized. So back here is the Swiss chard, which we'll just come out and harvest as needed. Usually, you know, a couple times a week we'll come out and just take a few leaves, and that doesn't stress the plants too bad, and they'll regenerate very quickly. In here I've got some turnips, which developed a lot slower this year than usual, but that's okay. Can't win them all. Let's pull this one out of here. And you can see they're fairly small turnips. They're not huge, but they're just enough to munch on. The kids don't really care for these anyway. I'm pretty much the only one in the house that eats these. However, my wife will come out and get the turnip greens and cook with those, as well as the Swiss chard, and over here, the beets. And the beets, again, are coming in fairly slow. Really, the only thing I care about are the greens anyway. I don't like beets, not the tubers. Now, it's my understanding that they get a lot sweeter as the frost sets in. And actually, that's not bad. That's a fairly nice sized beet right there. And these are they're a golden beet, so they're not as strong as regular beets. It's still not to my taste, though. I'm just not a big fan. But that's okay. I don't have to be. And these greens, the greens are wonderful. So we will absolutely eat these beet greens. And I'll choke down a beet. I mean, it won't kill me. Every once in a while, I'll take a few bites to remind myself why I don't like them. Just beyond the beets and the chard are the sweet potatoes that I'm trying to grow here in Wisconsin for the first time. I really don't know how well these sweet potatoes are going to grow. And actually, technically, these are growing in soil. So these containers are in soil. But since they're right here, we're going to talk about them anyway. But I've got some very, very healthy growth. They haven't vined out quite as far as I would have expected them to by now. But again, this is Wisconsin, so I can't expect these things to just go wild. But, you know, they're very healthy. They seem to be very pest resistant. And so far, the sweet potatoes look really good. I'm really excited to see what kind of harvest we get out of these this fall. But that remains to be seen. It's going to be a while. I've got a few bales over here that are just a mishmash of cole crops, but they're doing very, very well. Got a nice tight head of cabbage coming on here, the Romanesco broccoli. Not starting to develop any heads yet, but that's okay. Over here, I've got, gosh, I forgot what this one even is, but I guess we'll find out eventually. This is the kalettes, which are kind of like Brussels sprouts, but instead of the tight little sprouts, it gets little kale sprigs. So really cool idea. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how well those turn out. And of course, a couple of regular Brussels sprouts, which are always a favorite of ours. Homegrown Brussels sprouts, there's no comparison to anything that you get in the store. These are sweet and delicious versus the frozen ones that you get at the store are typically bland or bitter. So these are far, far better. And then, of course, behind us is the ground cherries, which has to be the family favorite, myself included. Those things are absolutely wonderful, delicious, fantastic. If you haven't tried ground cherries, you should definitely give them a try because they are wonderful. And then, of course, down here and all throughout the Bale Garden, I've got different herbs, especially a lot of basil. And it's always nice to have some basil. You just come out to the garden, clip whatever you need, throw it in your dish for the night, and it's just delicious. So everything over here looks really good. I'm definitely happy with the way things are turning out.
And of course, another garden favorite amongst gardeners all across the world, the tomatoes. And boy, do we have tomatoes, tomatoes, tomatoes. I mean, we've got tons of them. And as always, tomatoes grow exceptionally well in straw bales. I don't know what it is, but they just grow so well. Everything is doing very nice. I've got no complaints. As you can see, these are fairly scraggly, and I don't tend to trim up my tomatoes too much in the straw bales. You know, the tomatoes I have in the tomato bucket system, I pay very close attention to. I trim those up a lot. I keep them pruned, and I really give them a lot of attention. The tomatoes in my straw bales, I don't give these a lot of attention because most of the time I just don't have to. Now, these, the most of these are not ripe yet. I've got a lot of green tomatoes, but most of them aren't ripened up yet. Versus the tomatoes in the bucket system, a lot of those are beginning to ripen up. And I think the difference is the tomatoes in the buckets are just more stressed. And the more stressed a tomato is, the quicker it's going to ripen up. The tomatoes in the straw bales are just very content. They're very happy, and they're taking their sweet time ripening up, which is fine by me because that kind of gives me a succession through late summer. That way I don't get all my tomatoes in all at one time. So it works out perfectly. Now, if you want your tomatoes to ripen up quicker, you can always add just a little bit of a stressor to those tomatoes. There are ways to get your tomatoes to ripen quicker, but I'm not interested in that right now. I'm plenty content with the tomatoes I'm getting out of the buckets. And if these take a little bit longer to ripen up, that's just fine by me. But as you can see, the growth in them is absolutely fantastic. And then outside of my main straw bale garden, I did have several other bales that I conditioned later in the season, and I just kind of plopped all my extra seedlings or plants that I didn't really have a place for them. So I just kind of plopped those all in here. They're doing okay, probably not quite as well as I would have hoped, but really, I can't complain. Otherwise, these plants probably would have went in the trash or in the compost pile. So I got a little bit of everything. I keep some herbs down here to keep them next to the kitchen door, so we can just come right out here and snip them when we want them. Some more cole crops, more basil, and of course peppers. Lots of peppers in here, and even some Malabar spinach, which isn't doing quite as well as I would have hoped, but it's still doing okay. We'll see what we get out of it. All right, and last but not least is my back garden bed. Yes, technically this is a straw bale garden. So when I'm finished with my straw bales for the year, I bring those straw bales back and I put them in this in-ground bed. And I've been doing that for about 4 or 5 years now. And this has been built up to be some of the most beautiful, fertile growing medium I have in the entire Brew City Garden. And as you can see, the Yacon is doing just fantastic. It's not as tall this year as it has been in previous years, but I noticed it's much stockier. But that's because I did not divide up the rhizomes this year. I just put them all in one big clump, because really the only thing I want to harvest off these is the rhizomes and propagate those for the next couple of years. I'm trying to build up my stock. And as you can see behind me, the sweet corn is just done just amazing. I'm 5'10", and this stuff towers over me. So guys, don't throw away those used straw bales. Put them in an application like this, and you'll be so glad you did. You'll have some of the most incredible growth you've ever seen. Well, how did today's harvest turn out? I'd say it turned out pretty darn good. Whoops, there's too much to even fit in the basket. I'm gonna have to switch over to the bigger basket from now on. But yeah, that's plenty of great produce. That's 2 days worth of harvest right there. And that's just half of it. Remember, we were supposed to harvest the pickling cucumbers? Well, we did. And that's about half of what I got. The other half are being processed right now. Some were given to the neighbors, and the kids destroyed all the little ones. So they just love those things. I know the average kid probably doesn't care for a big old cucumber, but these little picklers, if you haven't tried them yet, give them a try.
Everybody loves them. They're super sweet, very crunchy. The kids love these things. So what is left here and the ones that are processing inside, we'll make some, probably some refrigerator pickles out of, and just put some fresh cucumbers on the table tonight for dinner. So an awesome harvest. I'm super happy with what we're starting to get out of the garden now. It's just spectacular. We got off to a rough start this year, but everything is looking wonderful.
All right, guys. Hey, I think that just about does it for the early August Strawbell Garden Tour. Hey, as always, thanks again for joining me here in the Brew City Garden. It's always a pleasure to have you guys here. And I just love being able to do these Strawbell Garden Tours to give you an idea of the type of growth that you might be able to expect in your garden. Of course, everybody's conditions are going to be a little bit different, but for the most part, those people who have tried the Strawbell Garden and properly conditioned their bales, most people have pretty much the same results. Everybody just documents a phenomenal growth, great harvest. So, you know, this is a pretty good representation of what you can expect in your Strawbell Garden. All right, guys. Hey, if you like what you see in the video, do me a favor, give me a big thumbs up. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. And also, hey, leave a comment below. I would love to know how your guys' Strawbell gardens are doing this year, even with the wacky weather we're having. I'm starting to hear a lot of reports of people, a lot of good things coming out of their Strawbell gardens. Also, if you want to see or hear or share with the Strawbell gardening community as a whole, you can go to Facebook, check out our Facebook group, the Global Strawbell Gardeners Collective. Just send me a request. We'll get you in the group ASAP, and you can compare your garden to others and share your garden with the rest of the community. I would love to see what you guys got going on in your garden. All right, with that, I want you guys to have a wonderful, sunny, beautiful day, and until next time, we'll see you.